There's an off chance that Beyonce is watching today, so hello, Bae. This is Cory, and this is the O The Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. A big shout out to the Alliance. Welcome again to episode 107 of the O The Anthem podcast. And a special hello to all of our new viewers. Hopefully, you are as entertained as the rest of the Alliance out there for today. So,
are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained? Right off the top, whether you are catching us on Stitcher or Dogcatcher or on iTunes or Feedburner or whether or not you are now listening to us on Google Play Music, where you can now find O The Anthem, welcome and thank you for joining us. So we are available on all of those through all of those formats and platforms. If it's available, please give us a like, give us a rating and a review. Let other people know that you found us. Share the knowledge of the O The Anthem podcast and let everybody know that you enjoyed it. Pass it along, basically. Spread the joy is essentially what I'm saying.
Exactly. We've been spreading the joy.
Yes.
All across this good city here.
Yes, we have.
I was a little bit worried that we weren't going to get any interviews with any mayoral candidates.
Yes.
Like it was just going to fall by the wayside, as things sometimes do.
Well, and it's really hard to say that we're your Baltimore podcast, because we are your Baltimore podcast, when we can't get in with the campaigns.
But we did.
We did.
Including today, very special day, DeRay McKesson.
God, I loved it.
It's because you put it in my head.
Actually, you nailed it, and I was just trying to...
Oh, you jerk. This is what Rob does. If you guys are watching on the video, which is also another option at YouTube.
YouTube.com/. Oh,
The Anthem?
There you go.
So Rob will just will put it in my head. You're mispronouncing something all the time. And then I say it right. And then he'll just give me a little cockeyed glance. And I'll be like, oh, I messed it up. Did I mess it up? This was a thing for a while with Patreon and Patreon. And
right.
By the way, patreon.com/O The Anthem, where you get all kinds of goodies.
And I want to say a very special thank you. We had to pick up some new equipment to interview DeRay today. And a big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We can say directly, the money that you helped us through patreon.com/O The Anthem went directly to help us get some new equipment so that we could head out to the headquarters there on West Saratoga and do the interview today. So many thanks to you. Your continued support helps us produce this podcast, as well as all of the other stuff we have going on, like Heretics. In fact, we had to pick up some stuff for Heretics. So thank you for your help when it came to shooting episode 2 of Heretics as well. So.
And listen, I'm usually I'm walking away from things that I do saying I ruined everything and I'm terrible and I should be ashamed of myself.
Yes.
I could, if I was playing for the Orioles, I could hit 4 grand slams in a single game, and in the locker room they'd come up and interview me and I'd be like, God, it was terrible out there.
Yeah.
Can you believe how terrible I was? And they're just like, nobody has ever hit 4 grand slams in one game. I'd be like, yeah, but I should have hit 5. I had 5, and I lost it.
Right.
I'm such an idiot.
But episode 2 is coming up this week.
But episode 2,
yeah,
I had to bring back the acting chops for.
Right.
And I think I did a pretty good job with it. I'm feeling all right.
Yep. So make sure you check out this Friday at
especially when I get all worked up. Ridiculous behavior.
So whether you check it out at otheanthem.com or youtube.com/O The Anthem, make sure you check out episode 2 of Heretics. And as I said, big thank you to our supporters, our faithful supporters on Patreon for helping us out with all of that. So
indeed. Now, we did not want to go too far down the road without getting directly to our big interview this week. As you all know, the Baltimore mayor's race is pretty much going to be decided Tuesday.
Tomorrow, yes.
So, is there a Republican running? I didn't really look.
Yes, there are 3 Republicans running. But as you've heard us discuss through the last, dozen or so episodes, the race really is the Democratic primary. There will be people on the ballot in November. But in the end, the Democratic primary on April 26th is the race.
Right. Because, and especially in a presidential year,
Yeah.
There's no chance that like there's not going to be any turnout for the November part.
Right.
So.
And so, we, as we said last week, make sure you check out episode 106 of the podcast. We had the opportunity to speak to David Warnock and Carl Stokes, both of which who did give us a response to our question that we had posed to all of the campaigns. Unfortunately, most of them did not respond, and that's their loss. They didn't have the opportunity to be heard.
And if they lost because of that, then it's their own fault.
Right. And I will say that we have the advantage of the O The Anthem bump. So to all of our listeners out there, make sure that you go out and vote on April 26th. If you've already voted in early voting, excellent. I'm glad that you've already gotten out there and did that. But otherwise, do not miss this opportunity. As we've heard from all the candidates, this is possibly the most important election in a decade. And we need to get out and we need to get the vote out. So
way more than a decade. I think it's
a lifetime.
Well, I mean,
thus far.
We're probably going to have kids who are voting by the time we come up to another election of equal importance.
Or we may not have another election. That could be.
Well, I mean, Trump.
It could be the result. So, we did get an opportunity to speak to a couple of the candidates. You can, as I said, you can check that out on episode 106. But we have a very special episode for you today because we had an opportunity to sit down for an extended interview with. And now I'm going to flub it. For an extended interview with DeRay McKesson. Oh, shoot. Yeah! DeRay McKesson. We thank the candidate for his time. It was amazing. They have an outstanding setup there on West Saratoga. If you're looking, obviously you have about 24 hours from when this post to get out. I think the tweet that I put out directly after we left was this. If you are undecided at this time, after you listen to this podcast, I think that you are going to be not undecided anymore. And unfortunately, we didn't have video for this portion. It was audio only. And you are missing out on possibly one of the most engaging conversations that I have ever had.
Yeah.
He was involved. He is an active listener. He is in the conversation with you. I feel sometimes when you sit down with candidates, it's a lot of them waiting to get to their next bit of what part of the stump speech can I toss in here?
Yeah.
And I didn't get that feeling from him. It was a lot of listening and answering the questions.
What I got more than anything was I felt like just watching him as I was talking, I would say something and then I'd sort of see him like, like when somebody's brain racks, like how you see them sort of like that, like just a subtle like thinking thing. I would oftentimes see me say something and then him sort of do that and then come back with a number.
Right.
So it's almost like he was listening, and then as he was listening, he was like, all right, what is that thing that I'm going to need to...
Yeah.
What's that number? And he's still pulling it in, but...
But a very well-prepared guy. And it didn't come off as political. It came off very much as a guy who's passionate about a city, passionate about what he believes in, and he wants to share his vision with everyone else.
Much like us. So 3 passionate
people in a room.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. So once again, a big thank you for taking the time to sit down with us. I mean, really can't say enough about that. And so everybody, we encourage you to get out to vote. I guess we're going to cut directly to the interview.
Yeah, and then when we come back, this may or not break the election.
Right.
But the O The Anthem official endorsements
are
coming up on the other side, and Prince.
And a little bit about Prince. So for the next few minutes, enjoy the exclusive, and in fact, some apparently unheard stories before, but an exclusive interview with DeRay, candidate for mayor of Baltimore. So
DeRay McKesson.
Here we go.
All right, we are here joined by DeRay. Sorry.
We have this problem where he always, no matter what, if there's an alternate way to say it, he will automatically say it.
I always get the wrong one.
In your defense, there is a comedian who goes by DeRay Davis. So he is who has convinced everybody that my name is DeRay.
Well, and I told him, I actually met you last year, very briefly and in passing, and I told him that I definitely called you by the wrong name, and you didn't correct me, so you're very polite.
It's funny. It's one of those things where, like, it helps me know who I've met and who I've not met before. So
Right.
when people say DeRay, it's like, I didn't meet you before. Whereas like when people are like, DeRay, I'm like, ooh, people now say, I was on Colbert and he said my name right. So way more people say my name right now. And it's awkward because I'm like, did I know you? That's why I don't correct people.
Yeah, I was going to say, or is it just the national audience?
Where do we meet?
So I was actually up here last April. So obviously it's an audio format. I'm in a suit, so I'm an attorney in Maryland, and I was doing bail reviews for the people who were being held way longer than they should have been held.
Yeah.
I was working with the BLM, but also with
National Lawyers Guild.
Yes, yeah, and we were over on somewhere in West Baltimore, and you pass through just to say hi to people.
Yeah.
So it was a long night of.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, obviously, you played a much bigger part than I did. It's one of those things that's interesting because for the people who, and I'm sure for the people, the 10 or 15 people who I got out, who we were there at the jail, and I was talking to people through the glass saying, I've got a list of names. They were arrested at 11 p.m. yesterday. It's 1 a.m. That's 25 hours. We're done. They're either coming out now or we're going to go file writs of habeas corpus. For them, I'm sure it mattered a lot. But overall, obviously, you had far bigger.
Everybody has a role to play.
Yeah. So I guess the big question and the thing that we really want to lead off with is this. How did you get John Waters' endorsement?
This is actually going to be the first time I've told this story publicly. So John and I had not met before. John, for listeners, they are in our office today. But John stopped by the office. I've never met John before. We've not communicated in any capacity, but he stopped by the office. I was at Doobie's, a coffee shop in Mount Vernon. Mm-hmm. I get a text from someone in my team that's like, John Waters just stopped by. And they're like, well, he's probably going to come by the coffee shop. And I've never, I don't have any relationship to John Waters. So I'm in the coffee shop, I'm having meetings, and John Waters walks in and sits down, and we have this great conversation. He's like, DeRay, I support you. And I'm like, well, I wanted to Periscope, and he was like, no, but come by tomorrow, and we'll see what we can do. I come by, and he's already recorded the video, and it's done. So that's how it happened. So he heard about me, he had been following me, and he was like, I support you.
So were you a fan of John Waters before that?
Yeah. Obviously, Hairspray, but Crybaby is Crybaby is a classic. You know?
I was going to say, it's got to be a weird turnaround for you. Have been spending probably months now with people coming up to you on the street. There's been stories about it. People coming up to you on the street and saying, "Oh my God, hey, we see you on the news," and then. Did you have that moment in the reverse where it's like, wait,
it was
Waters?
Oh my God, it's John Waters. He just walked in. He's so smooth, He's just a really good guy.
Yeah. And actually, Cory is a big film lover as well, filmmaker.
Yeah, I mean part of our thing is film. We do podcasts and films and the whole thing. So I'm sort of the auteur of the group here.
The auteur. I love it.
Last week we did a big long lead story using Old Town Mall as sort of a characterization of what's happened over the last, let's say, 25 years here since Schmoke basically went into office, of saying how the mayors from Schmoke on basically have sort of been trying to build their own thing and not working off the continued works of people before them. So we had talked to a couple of different campaigns and wanted to get your answer to this question. Say you're elected mayor, you have 8 years, you have 2 terms, all your campaign promises are met, you're moving on, you're passing on the reins to somebody else. What do the mayors over the next 10 to 20 years have to do using what you've put in place to continue along the success for the next generation, basically?
So 2 approaches I took to putting together the platform. One is a focus on strategy, this acknowledgement that there's talent in the city, that there are resources in the city, but there's no plan. And I think that we have to plan beyond 4-year cycles, beyond 8-year cycles, but we have to talk about what we want the city to be in 20 years and 50 years and be really thoughtful about how we build towards that. The second is about scale. So in Baltimore, so many of our problems are at scale, but our solutions have not been. So you think about what does it mean for a city with 70,000 people addicted to drugs, 40% of our adults cannot functionally read, right? 25% of our pre-K students are chronically absent. They miss about 20 days or more. So hopefully, if the scenario that you paint was my situation, that the next mayor would be able to say, okay, here's where we were supposed to go in the next 20 years, and they tweak it given the current context, but there's a clear pathway to get us to change the outcomes. That this really, for me, is about how do we change outcomes? How do we make sure that kids are born healthy? How do we make sure that more people move to the city, that it's a growing tax base, that we encourage businesses, that this is not just about programs that we can do just to do them, but this is about how we change outcomes.
Yeah.
Now, and I will say that obviously we did a little bit of research and getting ready for this. I don't know. It's again, audio format, but I got
research. Let's see.
I got a lot of it. So you were one of the co-founders of Campaign Zero, and I hear a lot of Campaign Zero in that response. A lot of the same things. So obviously, was that a good setup to the campaign? Is there a lot of those ideas wrapped up in your platform?
So Campaign Zero is a focus on how do we end police violence, and it is an acknowledgement that we have to focus on systems and structures, right? And Campaign Zero is 10 buckets with an understanding that no one bucket is more important, that body cameras, independent investigations, change to use of force policies, better police union contracts, all of those will have to happen if we're actually going to change systems and structures. When we think about running for mayor, it's much more expansive than just policing, right? That this is about crime, safety, education. It's also about public health. I'm the only candidate with a platform about arts and culture, infrastructure, technology, good government, all those things, and that's important. So it was a good foundation in the sense that I think it's heavily informed the way I think about policing and safety for sure, and issues of equity, and it is concrete things that can happen at the state, local, and state, local, and federal level. The Promise and Possibility platform is exclusively about the local level. Right.
And I was going to say, I did notice on Campaign Zero that it's broken down that way, where on different levels we can accomplish different goals. Yeah. And I will say all of this material will be available at otheanthem.com and in the show notes for this episode, so everybody can take a look at both the Promise and Possibility and the Campaign Zero materials. So everybody should definitely take an opportunity to review those. Anybody who listens to our podcast regularly knows that I've been advocating for a lot of this stuff for a while now. We certainly aren't going to focus a lot on the police. It's an issue that needs to come out. And I'll be honest with you that a lot of the response that we got when we were asking our listeners for questions was, we're coming up on the anniversary. You arrived in the city actually 1 year ago today. Saturday the 23rd, you arrived in the city and you went out to the Western District to the protests that were happening out there. And obviously, the election day this year will be 1 year from the wake, and then 2 days later is the anniversary of the violence that happened. So, I guess the question that's mixed up in there is, where have we come in a year? You've had the opportunity to travel all over the city in the last 4 months. Where have we come?
Yeah, so remember, just to clarify, born and raised in Baltimore. I've done a lot of work in the city. I was here in protest and as a part of the movement last April, but I've been here before that and, born and raised in Baltimore. In terms of where we've come, I think that there's a focus and a conversation about race, equity, and justice that has not happened in public here in the city in a long time, and I think that's really important. We have seen legislation pass at the state level, giving civilians and the public more influence on training for officers and oversight. I think that there's a lot of work yet to be done, though. I think that the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights doesn't make sense to be law. I think those issues should be negotiated at the local level. In Baltimore, the use of force policy prohibits us, or the use of force policy actually does not prohibit hog tying and choke holds. That doesn't make sense. In Baltimore, the contract prohibits us from automatically drug testing officers who are involved in deadly force shootings. That doesn't make sense. Commissioner Davis and I agree that officers should not be able to make alternate hearing boards when officers are disciplined internally. So there's a lot more to go. But I also know that we won't undo 400 years of repression in 400 days, right? That's not how this works.
Right.
Yeah.
It has to start somewhere, and it often starts with the change conversation.
Right. And you're starting that conversation. And you touched on something that I want to touch on, which is I have a list here of rumors about you that are completely untrue.
Here we go.
We got this from the website, too.
Oh, the Reality Check website.
Yeah, yes. And I just got to say, having spent a sizable amount of time on the website preparing for this, Like, you can definitely see the education background and how everything is, like, laid out and, like, the bullet points.
We tried, there's so many rumors.
Well, no, I mean, not only just the rumors, just, like, the stance, like, like, you click on, health and safety, and, like, you have, like, what looks like a well-researched, like,
Thank you. We tried
paper there, but it's not, not above the head of anybody, too, which I think is great.
I appreciate that.
And obviously, again, the platform Promise and Possibility will be available in the show notes, and you can always check out DeRayForMayor.com for more information.
Cool.
I'm going to show you a picture, and I want you to see if you can identify what that is. I don't know if you'll be able to say it. The picture's really horrible.
Oh, is that the street? That's Presbury Street.
That is Presbury, and is it Prescott Grove? No, not Prescott Grove.
Poplar Grove.
Poplar Grove, yeah. So we'll put that picture up on the slideshow.
The house I was raised in.
Right. So the rumor number one that everyone keeps pointing out is he's not from Baltimore.
Oh, it's so deep. I don't know. It's like people, not only was I born and raised here, I went to college. So I went to college in Maine. After I was in Maine, I taught in New York City, and then I also worked at the Harlem Children's Zone. I helped lead the largest community center in the Harlem Children's Zone. We have 500 kids a day, about 1,400 families a cycle. Came back home. I opened up an after-school center on the west side of Baltimore. I trained and supported a third of all the new teachers in the city for 2 cycles. Then I was a number 2 in human capital here in the school system. You think about the school system, it's a 12,000 person organization with $1 billion budget.
Yeah.
The city of Baltimore is only 14,000 employees and $3 billion budget. They are comparable in size.
Right. And so, I don't know where does this rumor come from? I mean, is it because you weren't here when you got famous? Is that really what it is?
I don't know. I think because so many people know me from the movement, they associate Ferguson with me or St. Louis, and I think that is that makes sense to me in the sense that that's how most people were introduced to me, and I think that's where it comes from. But I've done substantial work. Where I was born and raised. I tell people I've been in the city more than I've not been in the city.
Yeah.
And I don't tweet about. So I do get stuck in this sort of vacuum where if I don't tweet about it, it didn't happen. And I don't often tweet about Baltimore, not because I don't love the city, but because I screened the Panthers documentary with Stanley Nelson, the director of the Panthers film, at the Charles, and someone tweeted in death threats to me that they're going to shoot me. So the police came, they shut down the movie theater in the middle of the movie, like closed everything at 1:00. It was done. And that I stopped sort of tweeting my locations around the city just because it doesn't make me nervous, and the vest definitely makes me feel safe. It's completely rational. But it does make the people around me really nervous. So people took like DeRay didn't tweet that he was in Baltimore to suggest that like I didn't live here, and you're like, that is wild. It's like this weird sort of vacuum that happens because of my social media presence.
Well, and the other thing, no one will ever say that I am not active on social media. And what I have tried to tell people is the one thing you won't see me being active about is when I see my family. And I imagine that a lot of times when you're here, that's what you're here to do.
Yeah.
So it's like, can I get a couple of days to go see my family? And I don't. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not around.
Or I'm like going to lunch. I mean, it's not really.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm traveling, speaking to students, it's like, I'm going to take pictures, and I'm gonna, like, I'll do that stuff because it's like an event. Whereas like I'm like, hey, I'm going to go pick up the mail. Like that. I don't.
It's not like your Twitter is filled with like sandwiches you got.
Yeah, it's like, hey, and I do love grilled cheese sandwiches.
Yeah.
I love grilled cheese and company or whatever it's called, where you get like the crab cake grilled cheese. Like that's great to me. But I don't. But it's also like being home tweeting about the mundane is very different than being in San Francisco, being like, I just met with the people at Twitter, or like I just met with activists and talked about, like, that's different.
Yeah. Listen, as one of 10 people that Beyonce follows, you can't be putting your lunch on Twitter.
Let's be clear, she only follows 9 people.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There are 10 accounts, 9 people.
Okay. Did you make the
Tomatoes, tomato. Details.
All right, and so I guess the next rumor leads into that, which is you have organized here. People say, he was out there organizing in Minnesota and he was organizing in Ferguson, and then he comes here and he expects us to come in. That wasn't your first time organizing here in the city of Baltimore.
Yeah. So I started as an organizer in '99 when I was 14 years old. I would teach young people and adults how to work together. I was also a chair of Youth as Resources, which is Baltimore's only youth-led grant-making organization. So I did that work here when I was much younger. And in terms of, some people are upset that I did not know that Tyrone West was killed when he was killed. And the reality is I did not understand that police violence was an issue as deeply as it was until Mike got killed. It wasn't until Mike Brown got killed that I was like, wow, like I understood it differently. Yeah. And I can't apologize for not, we aren't born woke. Something wakes us up. Yeah. And that is real.
Well, and I was saying, a lot of people who are bringing out that judgment weren't there before Mike Brown was killed either. And
correct.
Everyone's looking for, and I pardon, I guess, the pun, but everyone's looking for their Morpheus. Everyone's looking for something that brings them out. And they've looked to you, and you've brought out a lot of people who are seeing things that they didn't see. What they don't realize is that you were brought out at some point as well.
Yeah. It wasn't until I got tear gassed the second night I was in St. Louis, and I was like, this is wild, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure that people never have to experience a world like this. And that was when I changed my career and did all this work to be in the movement differently. And the reality is that social media has allowed us to organize very differently than we used to.
Right.
I think about 99, we didn't have, the only way to amplify a message that deep was to knock on people's doors and to, and now we can have messages spread across cities, across the country with the click of a button. And that is just very different.
Well, let me ask you, I know that not everything is in control of the mayor, but what do you think about the use of the Stingray device by the Baltimore City Police Department? I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah. So surveilling people's cell phones, there are some instances that make sense to me around like national security and those sort of things. In Baltimore City, I don't know, especially when you're using them on activists. That doesn't make sense to me. And the court has said that the way they've used it is also not okay in the city. So I think that it's another example of the city of Baltimore needing tighter controls around the way the police department functions and interacts in people's lives. With the DOJ pattern and practice review that is currently underway, I'm calling for that to be expanded to include school police and to include internal affairs. I think that I'm hopeful that review, especially under the Obama administration, will be really robust and show us some real areas of growth and be really concrete. And I hope that the consent decree is as intense as the Ferguson one was. That is a model consent decree across the country for police departments.
Is there any hope of that actually happening here, do you think?
Yeah. People didn't think that the Ferguson consent decree... the Ferguson consent decree has requirements around the inclusion of youth, calls for some changing of the municipal code. We've not seen that before ever happen. It's a really aggressive consent decree. What is different about Baltimore in this process is that Ferguson, the DOJ, have many more resources to do the community listening sessions, and the DOJ that has been assigned to Baltimore seemingly has less resources to do that sort of work, and that so heavily informed the Ferguson report that everybody read. The stories and testimonies was how they entered into the work in so many ways.
Story, I guess, of a city that Baltimore, for some reason, seems to get less resources. Detroit seems to get less resources, and the places that seem to need them the most, just for some reason, fall short. But going back to something you mentioned earlier, you talked about working with youth as resources, and you also worked with Baltimore Safe and Sound campaign. As mayor, what kind of resource allocation would you make to organizations like this? Is there any?
Yeah, so I think that some of it's about resources from the city. I think more of it is about a plan and being clear about how people plug in. So you think about our issues with children, youth, and families, is that there are incredible partners already doing work, incredible programs, that the nonprofit community is thriving. But in the absence of a plan, people are doing incredible work in silos, not touching as many lives as they possibly could. And I think with these programs, it would be powerful to say, here's how we guarantee that every kid has opportunities after school. And we say, here's how everybody plugs in. And the mayor's office leads that work and says, if you plug in this way, here's how we find resources for you to do it. Here's how you cover these 700 kids who don't have after school programs in their neighborhoods. The groundwork is actually already there. What's not there is the plan at the city level.
Yeah.
Now, one thing specifically that we talked about, coming up on the year anniversary of a lot of events here that sort of have launched this campaign into once of a generation kind of deal. There were a lot of things about the night of the wake. So that was a year ago, right? Or is that the election day? It's a year ago.
No, it's the day after the election day. Yeah.
Which was obviously the give people room to destroy night, where Rawlings Blake came out and said we need to give people space to destroy. But one thing about that night that really confused both Rob and I, because we were watching it in real time as it was happening, was there was like a 5-hour or 6-hour spot where there was no radio communication from anybody in the city, except for, I think, like a police spokesman who kind of just said, message coming. And, you know, as somebody who has lived in the city and has family in the city and, you know, was kind of worried about like what was going to happen next, it was kind of upsetting not to have any kind of word. Do you have any kind of plan in mind for if something horrible like this happens, to communicate with people, to try and like quell emotions, try and like, you know, because it was all so chaotic that night, I guess is the thing. Like nobody knew anything, and there didn't seem to be any communication. Is there a communication plan in place for that sort of event?
Yeah, so when we look back at the unrest in April, it's important to remember that was all avoidable. They're like, what happens when you have, and I was there, what happens when you have hundreds of kids get out of high school and they're greeted by a few hundred police officers in gear? The largest bus terminal on the west side is shut down and the subways are shut down, right? That it created this confrontation that was actually unnecessary from the beginning, and I think that was avoidable. So when I think about being mayor, it is about being really clear about making kids, like allowing kids to go home. I remember I stood next to a girl who's eating a chicken box and I'm saying like, why are you here? She's like, I can't go home. And you're like, you're right. You literally, like, no cabs are coming, like you cannot get home.
Yeah.
And I think that actually was most of the tension. And that just, what we saw was that ripple effect.
Right.
But that was avoidable. In terms of communicating, I think that there was an opportunity for the mayor to actually be present and visible in a way that she just wasn't there. And like you know, I remember seeing her on TV and she looked like she was in a city that was not this one, right? It was just like, you know, she's like, you know, she looked unbothered to people.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you know, she and I have not spoken. I'm sure that she felt the tension in the city, but it didn't come across in her appearances.
Yeah.
And I think that was hard for people. There was like a lack of empathy that people sensed. But you know, she's not been a wholly bad mayor, right? She's done some important things for the city. I think she's towed the line on some hard and tough decisions, not way before the unrest. But I do think the unrest was avoidable. To this day, nobody's taken responsibility for closing the subways and the buses. It's like, I don't know how you close the single largest hub on the west side of Baltimore, and literally people are like, we have no clue what happened.
Yeah, nobody knows where anything came from.
Like, how did you shut down every bus? And people are like, we don't know. It's like, well, that is scary that somebody no person did that, right? Like, that's bad.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of things that she's done, it looks like she's pushing through the Port Covington development in South Baltimore. And I think news came out today or yesterday that there's federal funding if the TIF goes through as well. So what's your policy, I guess, moving forward with Port Covington, similar developments? Obviously, Westport will be the next one up probably after Port Covington in the same general area. And that kind of the TIF and other similar tax structured financing.
Yeah, so the Sagamore deal, as we know, is the single largest TIF in the history of Baltimore. It could be a powerful economic engine, could bring so many jobs to communities like Cherry Hill that have not had an influx of jobs in a long time. It could be an economic boom for the city. We also know that the process that was used to make the decision has been really poor. It's not been a model process. It's been very secretive in a way that I don't think benefits the city, doesn't benefit communities, and doesn't benefit any sense of transparency and integrity in city government. With that said, if it goes through, and it looks like it's going to go through, I think that what the city should ask for, should demand in the process as a part of a community benefits agreement, are long-term investments in the city, because they're not going to pay taxes for like 2 decades, right?
Yeah.
So a real commitment to me would be the creation of inpatient treatment centers, like a diploma granting program for adults. Like, that to me is like an actual commitment. I think it's easy to build rec centers. I think it's easy to, like, Under Armour is going to build basketball courts whether we want them to or not. You know, like, that is easy. It's like a drop in the bucket. I think that we should leverage those types of things for real long-term investments for some of our issues at scale.
Well, one thing in particular about the whole deal there in Port Covington that's sort of bothering me is that they've eliminated the need for the low-income housing in the area. Like, basically, any kind of deal from the city was supposed to be including housing for low-income people, and that was waived in this part. And I think in Harbor Point as well it was. Mm-hmm. And what is there a point in having a rule if we're not going to, like, follow it even a little, like, just...
Yeah, there are a lot of things unclear. So the housing requirements, the local hiring requirements fuzzy, right? They're like soft commitments right now. Training, soft commitments. It's like I think that we still have to maintain our commitments in the face of this still being an economic boom for the city. Like, it could be really powerful. It doesn't mean that we throw all of our commitments by the wayside. It's also going to be one of the single largest land purchases in the city. You know, it's a huge moment for the city, and it's unfortunate that the process has been not very transparent.
Yeah.
And I guess one issue that we had an opportunity to ask another candidate about is, you know, there's a lot of the candidates are lifetime serving. They've spent their life serving the city of Baltimore in politics, and you're coming in from the outside. But no matter what, there will be people on the city council who are kind of those lifetime politicians. People who've been that. The establishment. They're part of the establishment. Do you think you're going to have any difficulty being an outsider and dealing with people who are part of the establishment?
No, I'm an outsider to the establishment, but the insider to the city. I think that we can agree on outcomes, that we all want the city to be safer. We want kids to be able to learn. Sometimes we won't agree about how to get there. But I think that there are people who have been in city government for ages who also want this city to go in a different path, who know that we need a new type of leadership. I believe in having conversations with people, with bringing everybody to the table. I think that we make better decisions together. That's important to me. But I also know that there's some people who benefit from the status quo. And in a city like this, establishment politics have been deeply entrenched, that there is a rallying around the status quo that often happens in government. And I think that this election poses one of the few opportunities that we've had to just upend the establishment, because what you've seen is over the last 20 years, the outcomes haven't changed, right? If the status quo was actually changing people's lives in dramatically better ways, then I think it'd be a different conversation. But we've actually not seen that happen. We've seen deals happen that benefit certain people. We've seen a complete abdication of our ideals and our values when we think about things like the TIFs. And that just isn't okay.
Yeah. Following along with that, just this whole election cycle, mostly nationally, because that's where most of the circus is happening, has been so much different than any other election that has come before it. Really, this is, you know, never in our lifetimes would we think that someone like Trump would take over like he had. But there was a report from Luke Broadwater that it was 3 times higher early voting this year, which looks like it would indicate a higher turnout for the election on Tuesday. And with so many things sort of being in flux, is there a sense inside the campaign that we might be in for a big surprise on Tuesday?
Yeah, I think that it is up in the air. You know, people ask me about the poll often, and I obviously was the last person to get in the race, and the first poll came out when I was 30 days in. The second poll came out when I was 60 days in. For everybody else, the first poll came out when they were 100 days in, right? Is that the poll is 75% people 50 and above and 6% people under 35. I think that will not be the demographic of the electorate this year. And I think that we will wait and see to see how the numbers fall. You know, we touch a few thousand people every night when we knock doors, and so many other people when we are in forums and meetings. And a lot of people are undecided. They are still undecided. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people will be making a decision on Tuesday.
I was going to say, I think that the thing to note about that poll is nobody ever dives into who gets called, who gets answered. And we talk about this a lot. Neither of us has ever been contacted. And nobody that we know has ever been contacted. The people who are home in the middle of the day are older voters.
Right.
And if you look at the 2 candidates who are at the top of the polls, they're the ones who appeal to older voters.
I agree.
And yet, increasingly, especially given the fact that this falls in line with a presidential campaign, I think that the youth vote is going to come out. And I mean, there was a story that we read about turning Twitter followers into votes. I mean, is that do you put any stock in that poll at all whatsoever?
I don't put stock into it. I think that, you know, what it does tell you is that even that subset is undecided, right? That like it had like 14% undecided, but 60% of overall people like were persuadable, right? It wasn't as if people were locked in,
right.
And that's like the story that people aren't even telling about that age group. And I think about when we knock on doors, even people have signs in their windows, and they're like, yeah, somebody just walked by and asked me to put this sign up. You know, I'm not voting for them. And you're like, you know, people are really undecided. They are.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say, I actually had a chance to go out and be around on the campaign trail, and I saw campaigns just asking, like, are you voting? No? Can I replace the sign? Yeah. And literally they were whoever was happened to be there, they're changing signs. So, I'm actually from the Eastern Shore, and I have the same problem that you do, where people say you're not from Maryland, but I left and went to New York. I've lived in Maryland more than I've lived anywhere else, but of course you're not from here if you're not here at the right time. But signs are big over there. But here, I don't know that there's any indicators. I don't know until the polls close on Tuesday that we'll have any indication of anything.
Well, I mean, part of the science, too, that really kind of bugs me is, like, we talked about the Old Town Mall. I went down there. I was taking pictures. I was looking around. There's political signs all over, just, crumbling structures. Just go out on the west side and just walk around, and you'll see vacant buildings that look like they're about to fall down with a sign on them. And it almost feels like, I don't know, like just people are putting up signs wherever they feel they can like get away with it kind of thing. I mean, that's nothing new, but I mean, like, it seems like it's just putting into the whole thing. Going back to TIFs real quick, there was one that we had read about, I think it was last year, with Perkins Homes, where they were trying to basically just like tear out that community and replace it with another development. There needs to be some sort of plan to better protect people who live in low-income housing who are trying to like build themselves up, right? I mean, like we've obviously had like a long history of really terrible humanity, really, if you want to say it like that, over the entire course of the city with racist policies as far as like buying out homes and just terrible. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place right now. I guess the point is do you have a policy for public housing that can help lift people up and sort of put them in a place where development can help them rather than drive them out?
Yeah, and the housing question is important because the housing strategy is also a food desert strategy. It's also a transportation strategy, where all of these things are interconnected. When we think about the vacant and abandoned homes, we know that people not move into neighborhoods. There's more than 4% vacant and abandoned homes in the city, that the proximity to and from 4% actually changes the tools that we use in our toolkit to address the issue. And most people talk about the tools. And the tools, we need to use all the tools. So the Dollar Home Program, the vacancy value, the inclusionary housing, law enforcement, the vouchers to get people off the public housing wait list. Like all of those are tools, but what we know to be true is that this has to be a neighborhood by neighborhood strategy. How do we keep the culture of neighborhoods intact while we also rebuild neighborhoods that are struggling? We know that in neighborhoods with like 30% vacant housing, that's a different strategy than a neighborhood with 6% vacant housing.
Yeah.
Very different. When we think about public housing, we know that the wait list is 10,000 people. We get a few hundred, if that, off the wait list every year. At that rate, we're not making a difference. We also know that the housing department has some real leadership challenges, right? The same people lead the housing department who led the housing department through the sex for services scandal. And that isn't okay. So I think the housing department is one of the first departments that has to be looked at really deeply about how they've been operating, because it's clear that they've not actually been adequately serving people. And I think that I would replace Graziano at the beginning and bring in new leadership to do a deep dive about how we're serving people in public housing. Like, we're not doing it right.
Well, following up on that there's been talk from a lot of campaigns about sort of doing a thorough audit of all the sort of branches of the city government, because it's been so long since the last time that like a lot of these departments have had a thorough look over. Is there room for thorough audits throughout your?
Yeah, so it's easy for candidates to talk about it because it's already the law. So it's going to happen whether we think it's good or not. What we can say is that we're going to commit to doing it timely. The law has said that we have to do it. I'm the only candidate who's called for the school system audits to be public. So in the school system, there's already an office of the internal auditor. There are audits that have been happening for decades. You just have never seen them. And they should be public as well. Because again, the city of Baltimore, the school system is as big as the city government itself here.
When I say that, my mom was actually a lifetime educator. She was a teacher for 30 years and then administration, and now she's on the school board out in the county where I grew up. So she is happy. I am happy that you're making education such a big focus. I'll agree with you that I think that there's no super simple solutions. And I think too many people are saying this one thing will fix everything, and if we go in and do this, it's very much an inclusive everything has to kind of be fixed in order to get the solution. So what part does education and your arts and culture aspects of your platform come to play in that?
Yeah, so with education, I'm mindful that the mayor doesn't control schools, but when I think about education, there are two buckets that we can do right now. One is around adult literacy. About 40% of adults in the city cannot functionally read. That the adult literacy problem in and of itself is a crisis here in the city. So you think about attracting jobs, we could attract 1 million jobs to the city. People can't read. They're not going to actually be able to access those jobs in a meaningful way. There'll be a lot of people who are either stuck in entry-level jobs for careers, and that's not good, or they just won't ever get hired. So the adult literacy thing we have to deal with, and we can make a diploma granting program for adults. We can do that work. That the community college has a 2% graduation rate for 2-year degrees and a 2.5% graduation rate for 4-year degrees. That's really low. And then GED programs pass rates less than 10% in the city. So we have some real problems around adult literacy. With our earliest earners, our 0 to 3, 4, 5 years old kids, 0 to 3 Head Start, 4, 5 pre-K, we could actually scale up home visits for whole birth cohorts in the city. We birth about 7,000 kids a year. We could actually do home visits for all of them, which have public health benefits, but we could also give every kid their first library. We know that the biggest predictor of a kid's reading level is their mothers, importantly. We also know that the only way that you can become a great reader is to read, and we can actually make sure that kids have libraries. We can do that work. And then with arts and culture, I'm the only candidate who has an arts and culture platform, and it's important to me because I think that the arts scene here, the arts community, is one of our undersold communities. We just don't talk about it enough, but it's such a thriving community. Calling for us to create the office of the mayor's, the Office of Arts in the mayor's office. Right now, BOPA, the Baltimore Office of Promotion and Arts, is a 501c3 quasi-governmental organization. The mayor's office should have a real focus on arts that focuses on equity. There's funding, there are resources in the city that don't go to artists from underrepresented communities. I think that when people think about art, they often think about fine arts, like painters, but we know that street artists are artists, right? The dirt bikers should have a dirt bike park. We have to have a more expansive understanding of what art is and how we experience that in the city. Also calling for, there's already a 1% set aside for development projects for public art, calling for that to be doubled to 2% set aside to make a real investment. What would it look like if the blocks around the city that are all vacant were actually murals, right? We could actually change.
There's the one out on East Baltimore where it's just the whole block is vacant, and they got the, God, what does it say on it? It's killing me now that I'm forgetting this.
But what if we scaled it up around the city?
Yeah.
Because we're not going to, the pace of renovations is slow, but we could actually make those blighted blocks do something culturally in neighborhoods,
Yeah.
I found it interesting. I think you're the only candidate I have heard thus far in the campaign specifically say the mayor does not control the schools. Everyone said, here's what we can do about schools. Here's what we can do about schools. But you acknowledge that the mayor's office doesn't actually control that.
And I think mayoral control in and of itself is not a solution, right? That there's some school systems, there's some cities with mayoral control doing really well. Some with mayor control that are doing really poorly, right?
So here's my question. Why did Teach for America send you to destroy Baltimore schools?
Look at you. You're one of my trolls.
No, sorry. So that's just so we're clear. That's another rumor that's been going around. Yeah.
Teach for America is an imperfect organization that helps recruit teachers from across the country to join education. We in Baltimore, we hire about 800 teachers a year. We have about a 10% teacher turnover. In my career in education is not reduced to one experience, right? So I was a chapter leader in the largest teachers union in the country, the UFT in New York City. I taught for the New York City Department of Education. Teach for America was a partner in that. I worked at the Home Children's Zone, opened up an after-school center, and worked as a senior leader in 2 public school districts, both here and in Minneapolis. So my work is much more varied than just Teach for America, and I made this decision on my own.
And so you don't want to privatize all of Baltimore City schools?
Oh my gosh, no. I believe in public education. It's important for people to remember that charter schools here, all the teachers are in unions.
Right.
That some of the people who've made these critiques actually don't know anything about the Baltimore education system.
Well, I found that to be extremely true, that everyone who is pushing forward these rumors, the vast majority don't actually live in Baltimore or in the state of Maryland at all.
Yeah, I get this. People also are like, well, DeRay is being funded by, and it's like, I have 5,400 individual donors. I have more individual donors than all the people I'm running against combined. Mm-hmm. But importantly, I have the 3rd highest number of donors from the city, right? There's no conspiracy here. And people, I think, are looking for anything that they can think of to find that might not be right.
How much does Patagonia pay you? Really?
I like Patagonia. I get no money from Patagonia. I do need to wash the vest, though. The vest needs a wash.
Well, you've been hustling on the campaign. So
I've been hustling.
Real quick, I remember I had seen a documentary a while back on a community school in Cincinnati And I always thought it might make an interesting sort of, if we could reach out to more of this in the city and see if it would stick, where it's sort of all inclusive of like, there's places for people to get adult education after school hours, like go in for classes on reading and math, GED programs. But further than that, it would also be a place where it's, like a library where you can go and get books, or, a shower if you live in a place where there's not adequate facilities and stuff like that. What do you think about the idea of incorporating more of like a community school approach into like into a plan for the city?
Yeah, so we've actually already started to do that in some schools around the city. And importantly, over the next 10 years, every single school in the portfolio will be renovated or transformed in some way. So there'll be development projects coming to neighborhoods that have not seen them in a long time, which will allow us to actually build community spaces in school buildings that have never had them, right? And in Baltimore, that's important because we have essentially built our neighborhoods around our schools. That so many of the neighborhoods, like there's like a school every 2 miles in the city, like we have a lot of schools. We have enough seats for 100,000 kids. So I think over the next 10 years, we will see the community schools model be earnestly applied here. Right now, there's some schools that have parent liaisons and community liaisons that are sort of taking on some of that work, and not as many schools that actually have dedicated community space. There are some schools like PVPCS in Patterson Park that are doing the community school model in a much more with much more fidelity to its intent. Mm-hmm. But a lot of other schools are trying to do that, and Family League of Baltimore is leading in that work, and I think so many other people are devoted to that as well.
So we know you have a heart out, so I just wanted to cover two other questions before we let you go. Number one is, one question we did get from our listeners was, why wait till the very last minute to register for the campaign?
Yeah, so I got feedback and advice from so many people about the race and about my candidacy, and I wanted to make sure I made an informed decision. I made the decision at the right time for me. One of the last things that I had to do was find a lawyer, which sounds so, sounds so simple, but there's so many people running for office in the city that it was actually it took longer than I thought to find somebody who was an election lawyer who knew Baltimore ethics laws and Maryland election law, who wasn't conflicted because there's so many candidates running for everything in the city that actually took like a couple more days than I thought it would take. So I made the decision at the right time for me. Right.
Well, and so I guess the last question that we had from our listeners was, looking towards next week, what will you be doing? Is there anything on your agenda? I know the election's on Tuesday, but then no matter what happens on Tuesday, will you be here for the anniversary? Are you going to be here to support the city no matter what happens on Tuesday?
Yeah, so, love Baltimore. We'll be hitting the pavement every day until the election. We calling thousands of people, knocking on doors, have a strategy to make sure we touch as many people as possible.
And specifically, I guess, for the anniversary of Freddie Gray and all of that thing, are you planning on being around? Or will people be able to see you?
I've been around.
Good. Well, I do want to give you the opportunity. Is there anything we haven't covered? Anything you want to say to anybody out to our listeners?
I know you live in the Eastern Shore, but tell your friends to vote for me. And if they have questions, they can go to DeRayFromMayor.com.
Yeah, we have a lot of listeners here in the city, and I think everybody's very anxious to hear from you. So thank you for taking the time.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Really
thank you. And we're back. Thank you once again so much to DeRay McKesson and the entire campaign for giving us the time, for sitting down with us.
Yeah,
I really like that interview. So
yeah, and we know he was is so busy. He was out knocking on doors earlier in the day. He directly left from our interview to go knock on more doors. It's unbelievable of him to take the time, but I hope that everybody reaches out. It's at DeRay, at DERAY on Twitter. Let him know that you heard the interview, how much you appreciate him, and thank him on our behalf for taking the time to sit down with us.
Absolutely.
So we don't have a drum roll effect. We really need to get on those effects. But if we had a drum roll effect, we would
maybe just some sort of like epic.
So we've been talking about it for about...
And that was not Superman. That was one note off. It's the Vanilla Ice. No. No, it's not Under Pressure. Because theirs has a little extra ting.
But we've been talking about it since, I guess, January, really, about who it is that we would back in this election.
Yeah.
So we are now here. It is the day before the primary election, and it is time for the O The Anthem endorsement.
Official endorsements.
And I can't say that we're going to have O The Anthem endorsements. It's going to be Cory's endorsement and Rob's endorsement.
Yeah, so...
Because...
As you've followed before, we've mentioned this.
Yeah.
Rob is registered Democrat, and I'm registered Republican. So we figured we'd stay true to that because there's nominations on both sides.
Right.
Except for the mayor's race, which I don't give any care whatsoever in the world. I am just going to act like I'm a Democrat.
Right. And I think that we should, a little aside before we get into the endorsements, it's 2016. Can we seriously discuss open primaries already where you just kind of get to vote for the... there's no reason to have it closed. One, there's no reason that you have to register ahead of time why you can't. Story this week about how Oregon is authorizing everyone over the age of 18 is registered to vote automatically unless you opt out. Let's move that direction, folks. Let's get as many people involved in this electoral process.
As a basic right, as a citizen, I think more should be automatic about this whole situation.
Right. But being that as it may, we're going to start at the most local level and work our way out. So, starting at the level of Mayor of Baltimore, where do you go?
I've been thinking about it a lot. There's a part of me that does yearn for like the sort of steady hand of a established politician, and something that I like about an outsider coming in, and I'm very torn on the two camps.
Yeah.
So I think when I'm split between those two sides so equally on something like this, I just have to go with the person who's impressed me the most, and that's DeRay. I mean,
yeah.
It's hard not to sit and talk with him for any amount of time and not go like, this guy is whip smart.
Yeah.
If you go to his website, which will be in the show notes, and just click through the issues. I mentioned during the interview, super well researched. You can tell there's a scholastic background there because it's clear that it's just like well put out ideas for what his plans are.
Yeah.
You know, I like Warnock a lot too. I think he could do well. I guess it just boils down to the fact that like the establishment votes, the ones that you would really go for, the Sheila Dixons and the Catherine Pughs, I'm not really like that excited about either one of them.
Right.
I'm really not excited about Sheila Dixon. I'm just sort of blasé about Catherine Pugh.
And can we remind everybody one more time that Sheila Dixon was convicted of a crime that occurred while she was in office, and she's now running for office, that same office, again.
I would also like to mention that when she was convicted of that crime, there were a lot of people who were saying, well, it means she can run for office again. And then there were people who responded to that with, she won't do it. She's leaving the office in shame. She'll never be able to. And here she is, basically neck and neck for mayor of Baltimore again. So
your choice for Baltimore mayor.
DeRay McKesson.
Okay. I have always been of the mindset that I wish that at the end of the day, we could take all of the best qualities of the candidates that we like and mix them into a machine and have it spit out the perfect candidate. Mm-hmm. Because there's something to be said about a Carl Stokes who has a lot of...
I would love to get a little bit of Elizabeth Embry's left hand in on this.
But a little bit of experience... Carl Stokes has been involved in Baltimore politics for a while, and I loved his sentiment that no matter what happens, I'm here. I'm in the city of Baltimore, and I'm not leaving. This is not a stepping stone to something bigger. As an attorney, I enjoy Elizabeth Embry's look at the way that the law is structured and saying that we can't just go willy-nilly. We have to act within the bounds of the law, and I think that she would bring that perspective to it. David Warnock is a successful businessman, and he brings in an outsider's perspective from that point of view, though, about being able to run a successful business. And we all know that employment is the big issue for the city. And he's a guy who's actually created jobs before. So we have that. But we don't have the option of creating our perfect candidate. It's just not the way that things work. So I would turn everyone's attention to John Waters and what his endorsement was, which was maybe it's time to put somebody in who's a little radical, who will shake things up, and there's only one candidate who is that radical, DeRay.
Yeah.
And, I was thinking last week that I had, after spending some time with Mr. Stokes and being able to hear him speak and have him put himself together, that I was actually leaning in that direction. I as much as I didn't want an establishment candidate. I didn't want somebody who'd been political for their entire career. I was leaning that way because meeting him in person and getting that exchange with him and hearing what he had to say. But after sitting in a room, after doing a couple weeks worth of research, and finding out how detailed the plan is and the implementation and the sense that it's when I hear DeRay talk and he says, look at what everybody else is doing. They point out the problem, then they blame everybody else, and where is the solution? Their solution is, vote for me, and I'll fix it.
Yeah.
But there's no real plan for a solution. And then you read through that platform, and you see that it's uber specific.
Right.
And detailed. And that's what, I think that's what an intelligent voter is looking for. And I like to think I'm an intelligent voter, so I would say that there's really only one choice. And I got to say that it's part of me wishes it wasn't the case, because I think that there was going to be some suspicion that we sat down with him and that we were swayed somehow by personality. Personality had a lot to do with it. But you know what? Carl Stokes had a lot of personality. David Warnock had a lot of personality. And both of them impressed me greatly. But in finding out all about these campaigns, these 3 campaigns specifically, and digging in, there's one person who has a really great plan, and that's DeRay. So.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, we talked about it in the interview. It worries me that if God forbid some sort of situation happened again, like we dealt with a year ago,
yeah,
that we would have somebody who's just completely in over their head and utterly unprepared, and not the right face for that situation,
right?
And it's the commander-in-chief part.
Yeah.
Of the job, like when you're voting for president, you got to think about the person who's going to be making the decisions, like the nuclear launch codes, and like you need somebody who's able to stand tall in that sort of situation. And the city a year ago was as close as being a mayor of Baltimore is going to be to being commander in chief,
right?
And
literally militarized.
Yeah, and I just don't. I for whatever reason, I think DeRay's the best choice for that, because he would come at it with a level head and a good. I just worry that if you get Pugh or Dixon in there,
right,
then it's just going to be a repeat of the whole situation. It's going to be too much thinking and not enough acting.
And I encourage everyone to, as we spoke about during the interview, ignore the polls. The people who are polled are, as DeRay pointed out, mostly older. And when the final vote tally comes in, people our age who have gone to the polls are going to be the ones who are going to tell the tale. And as long as you get out there and you vote, don't sit at home and say, well, I mean, it's already kind of in the bag. It is what it is. Go out, vote, have your voice heard.
If you're going to look at the polls at all, look at the overwhelming number of people who are undecided.
That's true.
Still. Yeah. I mean, if you take undecided and drop them on any campaign, then it's a runaway win.
Yeah.
So nothing's decided.
Yeah.
And have you ever been called by a pollster? Because if you have, then you're the one.
Right.
Because
I've never been called.
Never been called.
Right.
No idea.
So, stepping up.
I don't know anyone who has.
So that is in there. That is our call for the mayor of Baltimore. Again, you heard our breakdown in episode 106 about how important this race was. You heard answers to the questions that we asked all the campaigns. You heard DeRay's answer to that today. Choose wisely, and certainly we hope that our analysis over the last 2 weeks especially, and the 12 weeks before that has certainly helped you out in that decision. But make a smart decision. More important than anything, though, just go vote. Get your voice heard.
Absolutely.
So, stepping up from that, let's go to the U.S. Congress seat.
Okay.
Because for those who don't know, for those who might be outside of the state of Maryland, while other states do their state elections in presidential years as well, because it helps to get voter turnout up, Maryland, no, we don't do that. We stick our state elections in off years so that we make sure we keep voter turnout low and keep the same people in power. So
Right.
There's no delegates. There's no state senate. None of those elections are this year. That happened last year, or in 2014. So the next step up would be U.S. Congress and 2nd District, which is the district in which Cory resides.
I hate to do this.
Dutch Ruppersberger?
Anybody but Dutch. But don't just. I can't recommend any of these people.
Write in Cory Baker.
Just write in my name. Write in Cory Baker, and we'll figure it out later. I mean, it's kind of depressing.
Yeah.
I'm sure that if I sat down with all of them, if I powwowed with them and drilled deep, I would find somebody who meets my criteria of what I'm looking for in an elected official.
Right.
I'm sort of convinced that all the Republicans, to an extent, have sort of given up on the fact that
Dutch is going to get it.
Yeah,
so
Dutch is going to run away with it,
yeah.
and there's not much point in trying. Just Maryland Republicans in general are kind of weird.
Yeah,
because they have to toe that liberal line a little bit. They can't be
unless you're the sheriff of Anne Arundel County. Looking at you. Anyway, did you hear that story?
No.
Oh yeah, no. Assaulted his wife, called 911, refuses to step down. Even the party's calling for him to step down. He won't step down. So yeah,
that'll end well for him.
Yeah, he's running for re-election in 2018. Yeah. That's what he says. Anyway,
yeah, I just the official O The Anthem endorsement for the 2nd District congressional race is nobody.
Cory Baker, write in Cory Baker for District 2. If it turns out that you get a couple of votes and they have to actually put that on a
well, I got the
somewhere,
O The Anthem bump.
We'll actually be able to see what the O The Anthem bump is in the 2nd District. That's fantastic. Well, and then
DeRay wins with a runaway. Cory Baker in District 2, 1 vote.
Or even better, 9 votes. Who are the 8 other people who actually wrote him in?
And why aren't you sharing the podcast? You'll vote for me, but you won't like it on Facebook.
My initial impression is to say just write me in District 1 as well. But no, don't do that. I don't want to say a good friend of mine, but a friend of mine, a guy who I fully support, named Jim Ireton, who's the former mayor of Salisbury, is running in District 1. Our policy in District 1 should be anybody but Andy Harris.
Yes.
That's really what it should be. But Andy Harris is a Republican, and obviously I'm voting in the Democratic primary. So that's an issue for November. We'll get there, folks.
We're having the opposite of, I'm saying anybody but Dutch, and I'm not a Democrat.
Right.
But nobody's running against Dutch either, so.
Well, I mean, I think that's the nature of the beast, right? We're on the outsides in the different areas where we are.
Right.
So, I mean, you want to just change? You can go live in District 1, and I'll come out here and live in District 2.
I used to live in District 1.
That's true. Gerrymandering. We should really do an episode about gerrymandering.
We should just do a deep dive into gerrymandering.
Oh, gosh.
I will let you guys know that District 1, which is a Republican district, and they want to try and keep as many Republicans as they possibly can in it.
Because it includes all of the Eastern Shore.
Yeah,
which is
the entire Eastern Shore, and then it goes into what we like to call real Maryland.
Right.
And it literally goes right a block away from where my parents live, where my dad lives. And then it just goes up the street and then out and then back towards other parts where Republicans live. Almost like it's just trying to separate my dad away from...
Well, here's the thing. You need no map. Drive through that neighborhood, look for the Trump signs and the big houses, and then you'll know...
I don't think there's Trump signs there.
Cruz?
Maybe Cruz.
Yeah.
I imagine it's a heavy Kasich neighborhood, though.
Oh, that's right. Kasich's actually... Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to the president. So, anyway, so Jim Ireton's running for the Democratic nomination in District 1. I highly advise anyone out in District 1 to vote for him. He was a smart, effective leader in the city of Salisbury, the largest city on the Eastern Shore, for whatever it's worth. But he did a great job, and he's got some great ideas. And even if I had not read any of his ideas, I trust him because, I mean, maybe I'm a little, again, it's bias, and I'll call myself on bias. I've met him. I've sat down. I've looked him in the eye. We've run campaigns together several times. We've knocked on doors together. And I believe that he believes in what he believes in what he believes in. And I think that he would always do what he felt was right, and that in general, what he feels is right is what is good for people. And even when that clashes with his own personal interest, if he believes he's serving the people, he moves forward. There's a lot of issues that came up in Salisbury that I know that in discussions with him clashed with his own personal beliefs, but it was what was the desire and will of the people of Salisbury. He served them, therefore that's what he did.
Right.
And that's the kind of politician I like. That it's not about what you believe in, it's that you ran with a certain platform. The people voted for you based on that. Now, when your position changes in the middle of an election or something comes up that you didn't run on, you got to listen to your constituents and listen to what they want and then do what they want. Because it's not your seat. It's their seat. This is a representative democracy. And it'll be the first time since Wayne Gilchrist, really, that we've had that in District 1.
And Wayne Gilchrist, who is a favorite of both of ours, was a Republican,
right?
But he was sort of the definition of the rhino, the Republican name only.
Yeah.
He served the community which he served.
Yep.
And he was very much for the things that he needed to be for, and a little bit more leftist on other things. But again, he very much modeled after the people who he was serving, and that was the most important. And
the reason he lost, because in the primary he was not conservative enough for District 1. So, unfortunately.
And guess who was? Andy Harris. And now how are you feeling about it? Great. That great was sarcastic, by the way. Everything's horrible.
Stepping up from there to the Senate race.
Takes tips out of jars.
Stepping up from there to the Senate race, which is a statewide race in the state of Maryland. So anyone everywhere can vote for Senate. It is a crowded field.
For your party.
For your party, yes.
Yeah.
And
so I want you to start with the Democrats, because I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant.
Okay, so Babs Mikulski is stepping down. And this race is essentially a Democratic lock race. It's going to take a very special Republican. I don't think that there is a Republican in the field. So, speaking about the Democrats, and, I can say that I've looked into it. I haven't looked into it a lot. I have heard and I have studied a little bit up, and he has come recommended. Chris Van Hollen has come recommended. I know that my personal beliefs don't necessarily align with Mr. Van Hollen completely, but I think that he will do a good job, and I think that he will represent his constituents. And it's difficult for me because I think there's an inherent desire to vote for the person who is exactly like you. And Ed Tunis, is that the guy's name? Mm-hmm. The guy who I showed you the video before?
Yeah.
That guy essentially is the guy I would want to vote for. Maybe not him, but a guy who espouses
somebody
his
like
beliefs.
him.
Yes.
If I could take a little bit of him and a little bit of DeRay.
Yeah, and just stick them together. If we could start
create a perfect candidate.
Frankensteining some candidates. But so, when I look at Chris
If
Van
I could
Hollen,
take the Christianity of Cruz and the unbelievable racism of Trump.
make the perfect monster.
Yeah, make the perfect monster.
But so Chris Van Hollen, again, I don't agree with everything that he espouses, but I do think that no matter what he espouses personally and now on the campaign trail, I think that he would serve the citizens of Maryland, and I think that he will help move things along in a Congress that has become somewhat stymied. And it's the problem is we don't have a good non-establishment candidate, and I don't trust any of the non-establishment candidates that are in this race. They are people who are like, the gentleman who ran for governor with his wife as the lieutenant governor. Like,
Yeah.
you're not a non-establishment candidate. You're just throwing your name and your hat in the ring. Let's not do that. So I don't want to vote for that guy. I can't back that guy. What I can back is a guy who I think that, although not perfect, nobody's perfect, and that he will serve his constituents well. And for me, that's Chris Van Hollen. So,
All right.
yeah.
Now it's on to the Republicans. And listen, come together. Let's all...
Papa Cory's about to talk to you.
Papa Cory's got things to say. I have not dug deep into this race yet, mostly because I could care so little. Apparently there's a lot of money being spent.
Oh, yeah.
Which is
Millions.
great.
Millions.
Oh,
of
I know.
dollars.
I'm just great that you're spending lots of money on something that doesn't matter. But I feel like it's NASA all over again. It's like the Republican Senate race in Maryland is just NASA, just blowing through money left and right. Stay with me here for a second. I admit I'm very tech savvy.
Yes.
I'm connected to the interwebs.
The hue, light. That's
I'm all about the interwebs. All about them tubes.
Yeah, if we had another 35 minutes, we could change the tone of the lights.
35 seconds is all I need. The message I'm going to spread to every single person who's running as a Republican, pretty much in the entire state, both in the congressional races and the Senate, please just spend the extra little bit of money to get a professional photo shoot.
Yes.
And a professional website.
Yeah.
We saw a GeoCities website from a Democratic candidate.
Yeah.
That was better than some of the websites that I've seen from the Republican candidates. I am going to put hilarious show note links that'll direct you to some of these websites. One of them was just a link to the Facebook page.
Right.
For running for senator.
Now this is good though.
What?
Because it allows you to like that page.
It allows you to instantly connect with the candidate, which is great, which is an awesome thing about Facebook.
Right.
And I'm totally about people liking things on Facebook, especially O The Anthem at facebook.com/O The Anthem. But if you link people directly to your page and you have 100 people who like you,
you need to have more followers than us.
You need to just listen. I'm not trying to rain on a parade here, but I'm just saying, if I can go to your professional website with your professional picture and your good-looking family, and I read views that I like, then I'm going to start thinking that you're a serious candidate. If I go to your Facebook page with 125 likes and a picture that makes it look like you were a gym teacher in the 90s, I am not voting for you. I'm just not. I can't have that associated with myself. So please, I'm sorry, but just step your game up. Everybody who's... Listen, I know it's Congress, and I know it's the Senate, and you're specifically trying to get the job because you don't want to do anything. But the process of getting that job involves a lot of... You don't just walk into the Ben & Jerry's ice cream plant and say, I want to be a tester. Right. You have to go through many interviews. They want the best and the brightest to eat their ice cream.
Right.
To be a senator, you have to spend an outrageous sum of money. You have to get all kinds of favors from all kinds of unsavory people, and then you turn out a website that looks like it was designed in 1992.
So, all that being said,
nobody gets my endorsement. Both the Congress and the Senate, you guys are out. You're done. I can't lower myself to the embarrassment of saying that I'm picking the shiniest of two turds. Or in this case, 9 turds.
Is there a Democrat that you would vote for? Oh, you didn't even look into it.
I didn't really dig deep.
Okay.
After Tuesday, I'll start caring.
All right. So from the U.S. Senate race, we of course
I'll probably just end up writing a Mikulski.
She wins the default.
Just everybody write in Babs and just see what happens.
See if she gets in it. She's like,
if it's what they want.
Yeah.
If it's what they want, that's what they want.
So, moving up to the last race, which is the U.S. presidential race.
Yes.
So I'm going to allow you to go first on this one because I know that in your heart of hearts you don't want to vote for any of these people, and I'm just hoping that we go for the three-peat of no endorsement.
No. This one will actually have an endorsement.
Okay.
I've given some thought to Trump.
Yes.
And then immediately I started joining street gangs and I didn't like how I felt. So I stopped thinking about Trump.
Yeah.
I started roughing up people who look different than me, and I just didn't like the feeling. It felt dirty inside.
Right.
So I thought about Ted Cruz. And then as soon as I thought about Ted Cruz, not even the issues, just Ted Cruz himself, I immediately became like incapable of doing anything for the rest of my life because he's frightening. Policy and face, just frightening.
Did you see the picture of the guest, the Jerry Springer guest,
Yeah.
or the Maury guest?
The woman who looks like
may or may not have been Ted Cruz. Yeah. So now he's the Zodiac killer. May or may not have been on Maury.
Transgender Cruz.
Also, may or may not have starred on The Office. These are possibilities. So
he hasn't denied any of them.
No,
so
he's not denied it.
You'd think at the least he could deny it. The Zodiac Killer one is so easy for him to deny as well. I wasn't even born yet.
Right.
Yet he hasn't said anything, which makes you wonder about somebody like that.
And everybody, please follow @CL Mason on Twitter.
Craig Mason.
Nothing but gold from Craig Mason.
Craig Mason, who is half of the Script Notes podcast, which is my favorite non-O The Anthem podcast,
Yes.
Was roommates with Ted Cruz at Princeton.
Yes, he was.
So you get to hear all about Princeton time.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz.
So not Trump, not Cruz. Who's left that you would even
John Kasich.
Okay.
I'm going to vote for John Kasich. Not because I'm like really gung ho about it, but he seems like a decent enough guy. I agree with him somewhat. Mm-hmm. And he's the only one who doesn't make me want to like scream so loud until my head explodes. Okay. Which is basically where I am. I would like to point out a simple fact, by the way. I did a I Side With not too long ago.
Right.
If you're confused about who you're thinking about voting for, I think it's isidewith.org.
It'll be in the show notes.
In the show notes. Go to the show notes. It's a long quiz. You can do a quickie version of it where you don't have to select how important an issue is to you.
Right.
But go to the site, fill out the thing, and it'll tell you who you match up with numerically the most.
Right.
I'm not a hardcore Republican. I'm not a Christian right Republican.
Yeah.
I'm not even a super heavy guns rights Republican. But the base issues, the local government, small government, those kinds of things, like fiscally conservative. I'm very fiscally conservative.
Right.
All these things should match up for Republican candidates every single time without fail. Democrats were higher than Republicans as far as my matches go.
Right.
Guys, the Democrats are more Republican than the Republicans are, if you really look at it.
Yep.
Especially Hillary.
I was going to say, well, Hillary is a moderate Republican. So.
Yeah. And Bernie, as much as, the ideas of like the free college education and the $15 minimum wage and blah, 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 standard Democratic party line things, there's a lot of things that are very Republican about Bernie as well, which actually make him more of an ideal Republican vote than a actual Republican.
So let me ask you this, because you have to vote from who's left.
Yes.
But who would you have voted for had Maryland had the first primary of the year?
Oh, of like the whole field?
The field, yeah. The field of 19 or whatever it was at one point.
It's hard to say because you learn about these people as we go along. So if you're saying like, am I going into if Maryland is Iowa and I know everything that the Iowans knew?
No, how about this? Let's just say that everybody had to stay in. Once you're in, you have to carry that to term. As the Republicans, the Republicans are forced to carry their campaigns to term. So everybody's still in. Who is it that you vote for now?
Kasich.
Still?
I think.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because, like, I don't know. I would have voted for Rubio, I guess. Mm-hmm. But he's clearly not capable of doing it. So
based on him dropping out? Is that
well, yeah, I mean, just by the end, before he dropped out, it was just clear that it wasn't happening for him.
Right.
And he had no way of turning it around. And his only hope was that, like, Ted Cruz and Donald Trump were on the same plane at the same time. And it crashed into the Andes, and one of them had to eat the other. Like,
and then they didn't get back before the
election. Yeah. That's the only hope that there was of a Rubio presidency. And I choose not to, much like the Republican Senate and the Republican Congress options that I had, I just choose not to.
Okay.
So I guess Kasich.
So are you saying you might vote for a Democrat if you were in that primary, not the Republicans? Like, is this a choice only because you have to vote for a Republican?
Yeah, it's a choice only because I have to. I mean, like, if I was
open primary, who do you vote for?
Probably Bernie.
Okay.
But if it's that one actually changes with polling information for me, though.
Okay.
Because, I mean, like, the last presidential poll I saw, Trump had a huge lead, an almost insurmountable lead.
Right.
It was like 20 points or something like that. So, I mean, if I feel like my non-Trump vote was just going to be lost in the ether,
right,
and my Bernie vote might actually help a little bit,
right,
even though Hillary was leading Bernie by 99% or something like that, some ungodly number.
In Maryland?
It was the lead for Hillary in Maryland is ungodly.
No, it's not that high. It's not that high.
It's not 99. I was joking.
No.
It was hyperbolic of me, but I'm saying it was literally like a 40-point lead for Hillary.
That sucks.
They can't help themselves. People in Maryland can't help themselves but vote for Hillary. So
yeah,
I would vote for Bernie. I would be happy to pull that lever.
Right.
Much happier than I'd be about voting for John Kasich, but Kasich's my only legitimate option. So
because it's a Republican closed primary.
Yep.
So, all right. So
onto the saucy one.
So here is kind of where I stand. I don't like anybody. People have been hitting me up for weeks about like who you voting for. For people who follow me on Facebook at Robert and Chico on all your social networks. They've been saying, oh, well, you look like you're leaning towards Bernie. And I'm like, it's not that I'm leaning towards Bernie. It's that Bernie just happens to say the same things I've been saying for the last decade. So, but there are other aspects of Bernie's campaign that I don't agree with. Here's the problem. I will not cast a vote for Hillary. I will not cast a vote for Hillary. And I made a proclamation this week that were the general election to be Trump versus Hillary, and those were the only two options, I would vote for Trump before I would vote for Hillary. Because then at least the system collapses and
we can start anew.
Maybe we'll just start anew. Yes, we'll go through a little bit of time of the apocalypse. I have a whole skill set, as you've heard on the podcast before. I have a whole skill set that's being unused without an apocalyptic time. So
in said situation.
Is that your phone?
I think that's you.
No, it wasn't me.
I think it's you.
Nope.
Oh, it is me. Professional.
Yes, professional.
By the way, in case you're wondering, I just got a Periscope.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is it DeRay?
No, it's TIF.
Oh, okay.
Toronto International Film Festival. Maybe you've heard.
Oh, yes, which we submitted a short film to.
Yeah, let's not speak of that anymore.
Yeah, but you can check it out on youtube.com/O The Anthem.
Oh, yeah.
So called the love letter.
Not at Toronto.
Not at Toronto, unfortunately. Anyway.
I don't know where we were. We just got off on
So here's the thing. I will not cast a vote for Hillary.
Yeah.
She is a corporate shill.
Oh, if you vote for Hillary, even if you're a Republican,
yeah,
then the party's going to blow up in the 4 years in between now and then the next go around. So it might actually do better for the Republican. If you are a Republican who hates the fact that you have to choose between Trump, Cruz, and Kasich, vote for whoever the Democrat is. Let this thing explode and then fix itself.
Yeah. So here's the problem I'm left with, is that at the beginning we had 3 candidates. No way I'm voting for Martin O'Malley.
Yeah.
Just not going to happen. I will cut off both of my hands before I would vote for Martin O'Malley. Not that we're forced to vote, but in my mind I'm forced to vote. So that leaves me with 2. And then I'm left with 2 candidates that at that point I was kind of wishy-washy on both. And as the election has proceeded, I've come to like Hillary less and less. And the more that we find out about it, more importantly, don't know that she's not going to be in jail before the general election. Yeah. Which seems more probable every day. So, that leaves us with really one choice. And here is where I get upset at the system. We have built a system where I am choosing between the lessest of all of the evils. The least of all of the evils. Because it's really the lesser of two, but the least of all of the ones that have been out. So, I suppose I will be voting for Bernie. Now, my hope is that... I don't know what my hope is anymore. I've lost
How about this?
Faith in the system.
Side action.
Yeah.
Do you have Martin O'Malley at twice the amount of votes as Vermin Supreme in the Maryland primary?
Well, Vermin Supreme's not on the ballot in Maryland.
Oh, damn it, Vermin.
Yeah. So I can't vote for Vermin, but I will put it that Martin O'Malley does worse in Maryland than Vermin did in New Hampshire.
Ooh.
I will say that.
Less votes for O'Malley in a bigger state?
In his home state?
Yeah.
Yes, his bigger home state, yeah. Than Vermin Supreme got. And I think Vermin Supreme got like 122 votes in New Hampshire. So
we'll have to see on that one. I'm excited to dig into the numbers when it all comes reported.
In the end, we have...
When they don't cast any, or when they don't count any of the provisional ballots, or...
We've created a system where this is what our decision is. It's one or the other, and I mean, I get that that's what it's kind of down to, but you know, part of me, the rebellious part of me, just says I'm voting for Bernie just because they have tried to screw him over so badly as this election has gone on, and I want him to win enough that we contest the convention and then give it to the people. Give it to the people at the convention and see what happens. So, I'll be voting for Bernie. And please, people who follow me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, at Robert and Cheek, I know. All my conservative friends are going to be like, I knew it! I knew you would vote for Bernie! And then all my Bernie supporter friends are going to be like, yeah, you came to our side! Oh, finally! And all my Hillary supporter friends are going to be like, why would you betray us? I don't like any of them. I don't like any of them. Yeah. I don't like any of the Republicans. I don't like any of the Democrats. I don't like any of them. And maybe I'll vote for a third party when it comes to the general election.
Go ahead. Throw your vote away.
But, by the way, also...
I'm probably going to vote for Gary Johnson again when it's all said and done.
Can we start having primaries for more than the two major parties? Where Maryland says, you're not big enough yet. You don't get a primary.
Yeah.
You just nominate somebody. Let's have a primary process for all of the parties. So we can have a libertarian party and more than one party. Maybe a real party? I'd really like a real party to run in Maryland. Anyway, so
O The Anthem party.
Yeah, it's not that I would. It's not that I back anybody. It's that this is who I am left with. So it's unfortunate, but that's where we are. I'm more excited about the local Baltimore mayor race than I am about the national race.
Said it here first. By the way, official O The Anthem endorsement: John Kasich, Bernie Sanders. Come on down.
So you're welcome to join us at the O The Anthem Studios, Depot area in Park Grove, Maryland, for an interview, an exclusive interview.
Oh, I'd love to get John Kasich on here.
Me too. Not for the same reasons, though. I don't think it's for the same reasons.
Imagine John Kasich laying back like DeRay did.
Yeah.
Just like, oh yeah.
God,
chilling.
God, I love him. I'm like.
You're smitten.
I am smitten with him. He knocked it out of the box, and I can't say enough good things. I really can't. So,
final point.
Yes, so to bring it down a little bit.
Speaking of can't say enough good things.
Yeah.
I lost one of my favorites yesterday, as of recording.
Yeah.
His royal badness, Prince.
Mm-hmm.
Is no longer with us. Rob can tell you this. There is a picture of Prince in my room.
Mm-hmm.
It was being thrown out. A friend of mine saw it, like, in with the garbage.
Yeah. And
got it for me. And then gave it to me because he said, I know how much you like Prince.
Yeah.
I had another friend several years later give me a bootleg copy of Prince's latest CD at the time, because he said, I know how much you like Prince, so I picked it up.
Yeah.
I said, I appreciate that. I actually already have the album. Thank you.
Yeah.
I greatly appreciate that. And then yesterday, you would not believe how busy my phone was with people who heard about the news and immediately talked to me. I have the credentials, and I'm so outrageously sad about this. Like, I can't.
There are also pictures that exist of you dressed up.
Yeah,
as
I
Prince.
dressed up as Prince
In a purple jumpsuit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did it.
Yep.
There was
eyeliner.
There was a Purple Rain karaoke night at Fraser's a long time ago. Dressed up like Prince, fat white kid dressed up like Prince. And the moment I love the most about it was because when you're in the uniform, you feel more like Prince than you do. Like, you feel like you can channel it a little bit, right? So I was singing all Prince songs that night, obviously. And at one point I was singing, and there was like a little musical break, and I'm sort of like doing like a sidestep, which is totally un-Prince, but you know, whatever. Doing a little sidestep. Beautiful woman walks up onto the dance floor, and she's sort of like dancing right in front of me and like looking up at me. And I give her the finger, like the come here, the come hither.
Come hither, yes.
She comes like right up, and I just keep. The closer she gets, the more I'm like, come on, closer. And then she gets like right up in my face, and I go, no. I just put up the hand right in front of her, and everyone there is like dying, and they're laughing, and so on and so forth. And she laughs and walks away. And then I finish the song, and then I immediately go over to her. I'm just like, I'm so sorry. I was channeling Prince. I didn't mean to be so disrespectful. She's like, no, it was funny.
Yeah.
She's like, you want a drink? I'm like, I have a girlfriend.
Did you have a girlfriend?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Until later that night, I did. I'm really, I don't know. I kept all night last night at the Oriole game. I kept bringing up, like, they would play some mindless pop. Like, they were playing Iggy Azalea, and I'm just like, did she write this song? Did she make the beat? Does she dance to it? Like, really dance? Not, like, ass shaking?
Mm-hmm.
No, none of those things. Prince did all that. You wanna know how good Prince is, just because I know for a fact it's this way. Go to get Purple Rain, listen to it. All the singing is Prince, except for when it's obviously Wendy and Lisa. Like in Computer Blue at the beginning, it says like, yes, Lisa. Yeah. Like, that's obviously Wendy. That's not Prince, but Prince does the singing. Prince does the writing. Prince plays the guitar. Prince plays the bass. Prince plays the keyboards. Prince plays the drums.
Yeah.
He's excellent at all of these things. Prince is an excellent dancer. Prince had everything going for him. Yes, he was a little bit crazy, but he never hurt anybody, and I fully maintain that if you are one of the preeminent people at your particular field, you are allowed to be crazy as you want to be as long as you don't hurt people.
Right.
So, you know, like if Justin Bieber was good, the lighthearted shenanigans part of Bieber, I have no problem with.
Yeah.
The, driving a Lambo 90 miles an hour in a 25 mile per hour residential community, I have a problem with.
Right.
But Prince would do things like rent a house and then paint it purple, and then Carlos Boozer would come back to his house at the end of the season and go like, why is my house purple? And then Prince would say, how much does it cost to paint it? And he said, I don't know, like $100,000. And it's like, here's $250. Enjoy. Like, at the end of the day, what do you care? Like, Prince is just the man.
You brought a llama into the studio when recording an album with Michael Jackson. Yeah. And Michael stopped recording the album with him because Prince wouldn't leave the llama at home.
Now, I know you've probably had enough of fat bearded guys talking for one day. From just this half of the podcast. I
was going to say, I don't have a beard.
But in the show notes, I'm going to put a couple of the funniest things ever.
Okay.
Number one is obviously Charlie Murphy.
Yes.
Which I'm sure everyone's seen, but if it's been a while and you're feeling nostalgic for it, go to the show notes, check out the Charlie Murphy Prince bit. The other one
I know where you're going, yeah.
Is An Evening with Kevin Smith.
Right.
he had to go out to Paisley Park for a project that Prince was working on. It is a half hour long, something like that, a half hour story or something like that. But guaranteed, if you watch it, just put it on the Chromecast, chill out, veg out on the couch, whatever.
You will enjoy it.
You'll enjoy it. It's hilariously funny. And it's on YouTube. I know it for a fact. So check out that if you get the chance. Prince, you will be missed dearly. But apparently he has a vault of like music that he's been recording like crazy for his entire life. So something tells me we're going to have like a Tupac, like where, you know, we're going to have 19 more Prince albums come out over the next 30 years, and it'll be like he never left. Okay. Maybe there's like another album he recorded right around the Purple Rain time. Yeah. That's going to come out and just like knock everyone like crazy. He did so much too. That's the other thing. Like it was R&B, it was soul, it was funk, it was like sort of traditional pop music. But he did it all so well. Yeah. He was a man of incredible talent, and I will miss him dearly from afar.
You're not going to go out to Paisley Park and pay respects eventually?
Maybe on Sunday I'll just drive out to Minnesota.
I just meant at some point, not now, clearly. No more road trips in your future.
Guys, I know the podcast has been late for the last couple weeks, but listen, Prince died.
I need you to edit Heretics episode 2. There'll be no road trips until you edit.
Okay.
And we got to shoot episodes 3 and 4, so got to get on that.
Guys, listen. Oh, the Anthem's taking a little break while I pay respect to Prince. We'll be back in 1 month with a new episode. Just kidding.
No, we'll be back next week.
We'll be back next week.
108 on time next Tuesday.
Yeah. And you know where you can find that episode?
Where's that?
OTheAnthem.com. Cory at OTheAnthem.com. O The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, YouTube, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595.
And you can find me on all social networks at Robert N. Cheek. Make sure you check out robertncheek.com, where you can find more information about me and links to my political blog, to news website, and links to find my books, which are available on Amazon. New one coming very soon.
By Rouse Books.
Thank you, sir.
And quick sidebar.
Yeah.
The last couple episodes where I've been doing the dramatic like punching thing.
Yeah.
I've been doing it like a strikeout call, like a third strike, like how an umpire gets into it. I think I might just go on and figure out all the umpires like things, and then just be like, you know where you can get more royal badness? Here's Tony Randazzo.
And continue on.
Anyway, I think we've done good here today.
I don't usually say this, but for the second week in a row, I agree with you. I think we have done good here today.
Maybe it's because it's been a second clean show. Maybe that's the difference. All right, well.
And it could be all of the good work that we're doing along with this. So make sure you check out the companion to episode 107, episode 106. Check that out from last week. But as always, you are listening to the O The Anthem podcast, part of the O The Anthem digital network. For Cory, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
Deuces.
Vote for DeRay.
DeRay.